Darkness, a soft hum of servers under the surface. A whisper, we are anonymous. One name, many faces, no headquarters, no single leader. This is the story of the most famous anonymous operations. These are real events, documented in news reports and official records. Stay with me. This is a digital civil drama. Anonymous begins online, on image boards and forums. Wikipedia documents how a playful, masked identity grew into a movement. At first it was prank culture, memes, jokes, and ironic protest. But online pranks can turn political very fast. In 2008, a video appears mocking a powerful organization. Wired and other outlets reported how that clip sparked coordinated action. Anonymous users called for protests. People organized on message boards and then marched in the street. Project Chanology is born. Internet pressure becomes real-world protest. Chanology mixed meme culture with physical protests. Jazeera and BBC covered the street demonstrations and the message behind them. Anonymous flooded phone lines and organized pickets outside centers. Sites targeted by the protests, sometimes slowed or temporarily dropped offline. But this movement did not stay in the streets. According to Wired, tactics escalated quickly. Distributed denial of service attacks, or DDoS, became a common tool. Sites were hammered with traffic until they went dark. What started as laughter shifted into political theater. Anonymous framed itself as defenders of free speech. Critics called them vigilantes. Supporters called them internet activists without permission. Operation Payback followed next. Wikipedia and major outlets describe it as a reaction to aggressive anti-piracy moves. Targets included entertainment industry players and payment processors. Websites linked to copyright enforcement were flooded with traffic. Operation Payback showed the internet's muscle and its danger. Collateral damage was real, innocent users locked out, services disrupted. Legal consequences followed for some participants. The line between protest and crime blurred for many on both sides. Then, early in 2011, a security firm claimed it could unmask anonymous members. Wired reported that the firm boasted of de-anonymization tools. Anonymous responded by breaching the firm's systems. Internal emails were leaked and reputations were shredded. The HBGary incident marked a turning point. It showed Anonymous could penetrate corporate networks and expose private documents. It demonstrated capability and raised hard questions about targets and accountability. By mid-2011, the world shifted again. Mass uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt captured global attention. Al Jazeera's on-the-ground reporting showed how social media and online tools supported protest movements. Anonymous gave digital support, taking down government sites and amplifying protest messages. This was not just entertainment anymore. Anonymous now sat at the junction of activism. After HBGary, things accelerated. Anonymous was no longer just a protest group. According to Wired, the breach showed their ability to dig into networks, and it made corporations and governments nervous. By 2011, major global events pulled Anonymous into new arenas. The Arab Spring was unfolding. Al Jazeera documented protests across Tunisia and Egypt. Anonymous lent support online, defacing government pages, spreading protest material, and sharing tools for activists to avoid censorship. At the same time, Western governments became targets. In December 2010, WikiLeaks published a trove of U.S. diplomatic cables. The Guardian and New York Times verified the impact. Headlines dominated front pages for weeks. When payment processors cut off WikiLeaks donations, Anonymous launched Operation Payback against Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal. Sites were overwhelmed. For the first time, billion-dollar corporations felt the sting of online collective action. But the spotlight cut both ways. The FBI and Europol began tracing the attacks. According to court documents later released, investigators used chat logs and slip-ups to identify key participants. Arrests followed in the US, UK, Spain, and the Netherlands. Anonymous kept pushing forward. In 2011, the group turned its attention to Sony. After Sony sued a hacker for modifying its PlayStation software, Anonymous retaliated. Wired and BBC reported on denial-of-service attacks and mass data leaks. Millions of PlayStation Network accounts were exposed. Sony shut the service down for weeks, one of the biggest breaches in gaming history. The consequences were massive. The U.S. Department of Justice noted damages worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Gamers were furious. Sony's reputation took a hit, and Anonymous was cemented as a name linked not just to protest, but to large-scale cyber attacks. By mid-2011, anonymous operations were hitting everywhere: corporations, governments, even intelligence agencies. The Guardian described it as a digital insurgency. Supporters framed it as activism against abuse of power. Critics saw reckless hacks that endangered ordinary users. This was no longer just about free speech. It was about power, data, and exposure on a global scale. The screen flickers with static. By mid-2011, a new name surfaces: LulzSec, born from Anonymous, but louder, wilder, and faster. According to The Guardian, they claimed hacks not for politics alone, but for the lulz. They hit high-profile targets. PBS was breached, fake news stories planted. Sony was attacked again, adding to its long list of security disasters. Wired documented how LulzSec mocked corporations while dumping sensitive data online. For 50 days, they went on a spree. Fox, Nintendo, and even the CIA website faced disruption. The media called it mayhem with a smiley face, but underneath the jokes, damage was real. Personal data, passwords, and financial records leaked. One of their most infamous attacks was on Stratfor, a global intelligence firm. Emails and credit card details of thousands were exposed. The New York Times reported how WikiLeaks later published the leaked messages, showing ties between private intelligence and governments. For critics, this blurred the line between hacktivism and espionage. At the same time, LulzSec announced alliances with Anonymous. They launched Operation Anti-Sec, claiming to target corruption and secrecy. Police unions, government agencies, and corporations became targets. Jazeera described it as the digital version of street protest, disruptive, unpredictable, and global. But law enforcement was closing in. According to court records unsealed later, the FBI flipped one of LulzSec's leaders, known online as Sabu. He secretly cooperated with agents, feeding information that led to arrests in the US, UK, and Ireland. The betrayal shocked the community. Members who thought they were fighting for a cause suddenly realized their chats were monitored. Trust fractured. The age of wild, unchecked hacks was ending. Still, the legacy of LulzSec was undeniable. They showed the world how fast small groups could cause chaos at scale. They forced conversations in boardrooms and parliaments about cybersecurity, and they left a warning: no system was too big to fall. As the New York Times reported, Stratfor, a private intelligence firm, was breached. Hackers siphoned off millions of emails and thousands of credit card numbers. The emails revealed close ties between the company and government agencies. WikiLeaks later published them under the name the Global Intelligence Files. For supporters, it was proof of exposing secrets. For critics, it was reckless theft that endangered lives. At the same time, Anonymous turned its attention to governments. In early 2012, the FBI and Department of Justice websites went dark after a coordinated attack. Reuters reported that it was retaliation for the shutdown of Megaupload, a file-sharing site. The message was clear: if you silence one platform, Anonymous will strike back. But the heat was rising. Law enforcement agencies across the US and Europe began arresting members linked to the group. According to court records summarized by The Guardian, charges included computer fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. For the first time, names and faces were pulled out from behind the Guy Fawkes masks. One major arrest shook the movement: Jeremy Hammond. He was accused of being part of the Stratfor hack. The FBI described him as one of the most dangerous cybercriminals of his time. In 2013, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Wired documented how Hammond called himself an electronic Robin Hood, insisting his actions were about justice, not profit. Meanwhile, anonymous operations weren't just in the US. In Europe, governments and corporations were also targeted. According to BBC News, Anonymous attacked sites tied to Spanish police, Italian parliament, and even the Vatican. These actions kept the movement in headlines across the Atlantic. By now, Anonymous was a paradox. a leaderless collective that could inspire thousands to act, but also a fractured group where infiltrators and arrests weakened unity. Some called it the end of Anonymous. Others said you can't kill an idea. The mid-2010s bring a shift. Many believed Anonymous was finished. Arrests in the US and Europe had thinned their ranks. Media outlets like the New York Times and BBC reported on the decline, but Anonymous never completely disappeared. In 2014, after the police shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, the mask reappeared. Statements condemned police brutality. Leaked documents from local authorities sparked controversy. The Guardian covered the operation, noting both its messy execution and the renewed power of the symbol. In 2015, after the Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris, Anonymous declared Operation ISIS. BBC News documented how thousands of social media accounts linked to extremist propaganda were shut down. Some called it digital resistance. Others warned that innocent accounts were caught in the sweep. As time moved forward, Anonymous grew less consistent. Some campaigns fizzled before they began. Others made headlines and then vanished. By 2018, Wired described the group as a ghost of what it once was. Yet, in 2020, during the George Floyd protests, Anonymous returned to the global stage. Old videos circulated again. Claims of fresh hacks went viral. Whether coordinated or not, the imagery of the mask-flooded timelines. It reminded the world, Anonymous is not an organization. It is a symbol anyone can wear. Even now, experts debate the truth. Is Anonymous still active, or is it only a fragmented idea used by scattered hackers and activists? What is undeniable is its cultural impact. From early raids and protests to global headlines in Reuters, The Guardian, and Al Jazeera, Anonymous reshaped how the world thinks about hacktivism. A final image appears, the Guy Fawkes mask, no leaders, no headquarters, no borders, only a whisper. We are Anonymous, we are Legion, we do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us. The screen goes black,